Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Welcome to another episode in the new year. So we were just scrambling, trying to get the recording on, and the apps were crashing, and we've got a half-hour window to record, and we're going to record a half-hour podcast for you in 22 minutes.
We can do it.
Just so you know, we're gonna bend some time for you before we have to get to our clients. Maybe it'll be a 22-minute episode in 22 minutes. Little magic happening. So today's topic, as we start the new year, Happy New Year to everyone, by the way. It was funny. I was like, well, let's talk about not condemning people and resentment, and so we're going to rename it a much more positive one of stages to achieving grace for mankind. Does that sound better than not condemning people? You like that better?
It feels a little lighter. Yeah.
It's funny. I'm actually in New York City right now, which is a great place to practice achieving grace for mankind. And so, it was coming up because I was thinking about the idea of, as we step forward to these new ways of being, the New Year is often, as we talked about in the last episode, about where people set these intentions for themselves. And we start to push ourselves into new territory. We start to play with our identity. We start to step into places that can be very challenging. And often when we're feeling challenged, frustration can show up. We can feel like these are the obstacles in our way. Judgments can come up. We can start to feel like, like we want to condemn people or situations that feel like obstacles to us, as opposed to just moving past the obstacles and engaging with them in a different way. And, it's funny being in New York City. I was walking yesterday, and I do pretty great in the city for about 3 or 4 days. And then I think it starts to kind of wear on me and my ability to kind of hold my own alignment and, just the congestion, the stimulus of the city. I used to last 30 seconds here. And now I feel pretty good that I can get through most of the week without having to really kind of do some deeper work with myself and resetting. But it's a great place to get triggered too. And so it was funny. I was like rushing to get back to the hotel to do a session. And I was like, trying to get through people, and this teenager spit on the sidewalk, right next to my foot as I was walking, this big gross spit. And he was with their parents. And I was like I had this instantaneous response of judgment and condemnation. I was like, in my mind, I was like, did his parents not just see that? And then his dad turned around, and the thought that I had was, oh God, he's even worse. I was like, here I am in my mind beating up these people that are just, doing what they're doing in the city. And I'm trying to get through to get to my session, feeling stressed about timing. And it was a perfect opportunity for me to condemn some random folks that were, doing their thing, which happened to be spitting on the sidewalk next to my foot. And so it got me kind of thinking about this idea of like, when we're pushed, it's really easy to start to kind of throw daggers or to look negatively outside of ourselves. And we all do it to varying degrees, and also just spending a bunch of time where I grew up, that there's a lot of victimhood where I grew up. There's a lot of people that are just like, steering the ship into town and talking about all the reasons why this has got to go wrong. And, it's really interesting to observe that. And, living where I live now in Westlake Village or Thousand Oaks, California, where people tend to look for like, oh, the opening, this is how it's going to work for me, as opposed to, the place where I grew up where this is how it's going to go wrong. And, it's just so fascinating looking at the contrast in that. And so I was working with one of my coaches, Jeffrey, Nick, Jeffrey, and talking about this concept. And, he's big on gratitude. And so really looking at if we wanted to just go from, oh, I'm finding myself condemning people or judging people or, looking negatively at that or world, seeing it as this thing to fight with versus finding love for it, what is that process? And I started to quite often we just go, oh, I just want to embody love for humanity. I just want to go to the final stage of it. But with most things that are a shift in way of being, it really makes sense to have stages to it unless we're having some dramatic breakthrough. And a lot of the line living tools are about just simply shifting from here to there because we have a different inner landscape. And sometimes we take kind of steps to get there. And so these four steps were kind of funny how they came up, and looking at them, they're not real intuitive of like, oh, this is a linear path. But I'll talk about that in a minute too. How you doing, Nick? Happy New Year.
I'm doing great. Thank you. Happy New Year. You know what?
You don't ever
As
condemn
hot
people, do you? Or
as
do you
well.
always
I
have
mean, what I
love
was thinking
for
was as
humanity?
hobbies go, spitting on the sidewalk is a very economical hobby, and I probably wouldn't feel great if it landed within distance of my foot. But what I was thinking of when you were chatting is we all have these biases that show up, and under
Yeah.
time and pressure, these biases can come up, and when the dad turns around, it could be like, that person. Of course, that person.
Of course, that's where that kid came from. He's even worse.
I may
Kid's doing
may have
pretty good
had
consider.
right. I I may have had a couple moments in my time where I've had my equivalent of that person.
Yeah,
It's showed
yeah.
up. My own
It was
biases,
such a
for sure.
yeah, it's such a funny moment, right? Like I just felt my mind just kind of go on this rant, and then just laughing at myself. I'm like, man, you just like I didn't even look at the mom. Like I was like, oh, like, I just stopped. I didn't make it all the way through the family. I just made it to the first two members, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like that's funny.
Yeah. 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 And kudos to you for having that self-awareness piece of making it into a joke and moving through it.
Yeah.
Fun.
It didn't actually get on my foot, so that's better. But
Well, that would make it way harder.
if I had to wipe it off, I don't know if I could have stopped in time.
Well, I mean, the good thing is you weren't in California, so you were wearing closed shoes. In California, if that happened, it could have been a flip-flop on your foot. You could have gotten that spray. Oh man, there's I have a friend in San Francisco. This is sort of the same thing, but very different. She was on the bus one day going to work, and someone sneezed behind her,
Oh
and
God.
she felt it on her shoulder. So that didn't happen to your foot. It sounds like. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting. I don't think we've talked about this on here, but it's been showing up quite a bit. Is often the tools that Align Living, the system has come as downloads. It's been spread out over the last almost 10 years now, and it all fits together, integrated in the system. And it's so funny because each step of the way, the tools have supported the last tools. And so it's like we get to a point where we look at the perspective that it's created from what we're doing, and we go, oh, of course. Well, this makes so much sense. And then we look forward and go, well, I'm not sure where this is headed. My linear mind can't figure it out. It can't, what is the next step to greater alignment, to greater clarity? And we try different things if we're coming from that place. But then a download comes in, and a tool or a perspective and all of a sudden we're in a new of course. And that of course we never could have seen looking at the last of course this is how things are. But when we get to it, we can look back and go, oh, it makes so much sense. This was the next step. But from the last step, we couldn't look forward and go, oh, you know what I think is going to be the next step is this, because it's just so far from the way our brain would think or what seems logical or what seems linear. And we end up at a new place and go, oh, that makes so much sense that I'm here from there, looking backwards. But looking forwards, I never would have predicted that this would be where I would end up next. And there's something really fun and exciting about that, right? When we go, well, my intuition is guiding me, and my access to the higher realms and the higher knowing is guiding me. And if I try to use my brain, I would never get from here to there. I can look backwards and see how I got here. In fact, you know, I think I've shared this before. When I wrote my book, my publishing agent challenged me to write a book for business people about aligned living. And so I thought, well, I need the science for it. I can't really go, oh, and then there's this magical leap from here to here, and we do this. And so I started researching the science and found all this great stuff with Greg Braden and Dr. Joe Dispenza and the Heart Math Institute, and found the peer-reviewed published science that explained aligned living. And I was like that's so fun to look backwards and kind of reverse engineer it. Oh, why is it that this works? Well, it makes perfect sense now, but I never would have followed that science and ended up where we ended up. And so it's such a cool part of using our intuition as guidance is that it's just so clear, but our linear mind would never get us there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then as these tools relate to folks, as they go through their own scenarios where maybe biases show up and through the equivalent of people spitting on the sidewalk, whatever that looks like. It could be in a business meeting. It could be someone said something that was triggering to you. It could be the challenge that you've approached 10 different ways, or maybe 10 different times, but you think it's only 10 different ways and it's really the same way. Either way, you're not moving past the challenge. How do these tools help folks in those situations get that awareness that you had? Almost real time, it sounds like, David.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is that things just become a lot less personal, and whenever we are in a place where we're fighting against our surroundings, where we've left our alignment with the organizing energy of the universe, and where our ego's activated, we're in some sort of struggle, we just go, "Oh, this isn't working. This thing that 99% of the population does to navigate the world, it doesn't work for me anymore." And so whenever we find ourselves there, we have an alternative, we have the tools and a system to get back into that higher place of knowing. And it's so distinct, that feeling of like this doesn't work for me. Sitting here condemning people on the sidewalk and getting upset and like, this doesn't work for me. I'm not ready for a session. I'm not ready to be here to support somebody. Like, I got to clean up my shit and fast. I got 10 minutes before I'm on this call. And so I think that way of being just feels so different, and having the tools to do something about it. And so realization, like awareness, and then having traction, having a sense of agency over your life and your business. And when you have those two things, like, it's really silly to not do something about it.
Well, it sounds like you have the ability to do something about it. You have the ability to not get
And the
angry at this.
awareness that it's a problem, the awareness
Yeah.
that this doesn't work for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And probably some experience in maybe reacting to those situations in the past that were, were less than productive.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so it's funny. So later that day, I had my coaching call for my coaching, and I was talking about this, and I said, it's really interesting, like, what a place for that to, like, if my goal is to have, grace for mankind, to embody that love for humanity, I'm like, that is not what I grew up with. That is not how I survived my childhood or survived the world. And it's not what I was taught. And so in those moments when it comes up and that just reveals itself, in the, sidewalk spitting incident, I was like, well, what did I can't just go, oh no, that's right. I am going to embody love for humanity. That I'm not going to condemn this family. I'm going to embody love. And like, okay, well, that's sometimes you can't get from here to there, right? And then we talk a lot about what do I need to do to be ready to get into alignment. And so, uh, I broke it down into basically 4 stages. And so, if you're struggling with this, if you're finding yourself in judgment, even if it's rightfully so, like, it doesn't matter, it pushes you into a consciousness. And so the first one, and this is funny because it sounds awful, it sounds like the opposite direct, it sounds like going the opposite direction, and this is the part that makes it non-logical, is step 1 that I wrote down was gratitude for my consciousness and role here. And it's a really interesting thing, right? When we finding ourselves judging people, to go, well, I'm so glad that that's not my role. Instead of going, I can't believe they're doing that. What if we said, instead of holding ourselves in that condemnation of it, go, I'm so glad that's not the role that I'm here to play. I'm so glad that my consciousness is different than that in the work that I've done. And I'm so grateful for the work I've done. And that sounds like the opposite of the opposite direction. It sounds like it's self-righteousness. It sounds like it's, like, I'm better than you type thing. But what it does is it puts us into gratitude, and it unhooks us from the condemnation, and we go into gratitude. And then from that place of gratitude, we can't condemn. We can't sit there and go, well, you're this shitty person and I'm this great person. Like it does work. So when we go into a place of like, I'm so glad for how I operate that I would never do that. That makes me feel good about me, which quickly moves us into the stage 2, which is seeing people through a lens of empathy and grace, which is like, oh, okay, well, I don't need to condemn you now. Like I can actually have space for you and whatever's going on for you, whatever that feels like a normal thing for you. And quickly through that, like, because if we're in gratitude, we can't be in condemnation. And so we can quickly utilize the gratitude for who we are and how we operate as a place to access empathy and grace. And then the third step was seeing the facets of beauty in others and calling that part of them forward. And I think this is a bigger jump, right? The first two are kind of unhooking and seeing it through a different lens. And then the third one starts to become much more deeper intentionality, something that we need to practice doing. You go, okay, now that I've found some empathy and grace for them and some gratitude for life, how do I engage with them to call forward, the facet of them where the beauty is, the facet of them where their light is? And then the fourth stage is, okay, I'm doing this all the time. Now I can start to embody, now I can start to embody a love for humanity. And it's interesting as this was coming up for me. I'm like, wow, this is a really cool thing for me to focus on this year, and the beginning of this year, right? Of what if I like dismantle, because step 1 and 2 is and 3 are really about a mechanical process to go through in order to change an old ingrained way of being or behavior or what we may trigger to under pressure. And It, yeah. So how do those land for you, Nick? Like we didn't have any time to chat before we hopped on the call today, so this is the first I'm sharing them with you. How do those land?
Yeah, I'm hearing them all, and the phrase that's coming to mind for me is unconditional positive regard. Right. So
Oh, I
the
like that. Yeah, yeah.
perspective that it wasn't done out of malice or it wasn't done out
Hmm.
of disrespect.
But
Um,
sometimes it is, right?
well, that
And
sure,
so that applies to this situation, but a lot of times it is done out of malice. But it's still the same thing. Can we look at it with empathy and grace for the person who
that's right.
is projecting their anger, their frustration, or maybe responding to our own anger and frustration being projected on them?
That's right. Yeah. So I still think there's a positive regard aspect towards that human.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
and
Regardless
yeah,
of intention.
yeah. And there could easily be a difference between how that shows up for someone if that loogie landed a foot away versus an inch away versus
Yeah, it hits you
right on
square.
your
Yeah, yeah,
shoe versus right on
yeah.
uh
I'm back at step 0, which is
right.
step 0 is condemnation.
Yeah. I think self-management could vary very differently in those different scenarios.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
But it is, I think, a philosophical come from and a way
Hmm.
of being that can then help that self-management show up in different ways across those different scenarios.
Yeah, and ultimately it serves humanity and it serves us, right? Like that
That's
place
right.
of it is the aligned way of being. It is saying like, if I get entangled with these things that I decide are wrong or bad in the world, or people's behavior that's wrong or bad or offensive, like does not get me on a path forward of creating what I want to create in the world. That gets me entangled and stuck and in a lower frequency. And we look at, like, you bring up any social media now, it's just filled with outrage. Any news is just filled with outrage. And that's not solving anything. It's not. It's just entangling and developing more of it, developing our own lives. And I can see why it feels like that's working towards a solution. That outrage is the first step, but I don't think it is. I really don't, because it just pushes us into a place of fighting against. And when we're fighting and struggling and angry and condemning, nothing good happens. And so it's funny, as I said, like there's all this stuff in the news around ICE and all this, and just in politics, and it's constant condemnation in all directions rather than finding a different way of engaging with it that helps people move into a consciousness where this, horrific shit isn't happening anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the complexities out in the world that you just mentioned are not seem to be increasing rapidly.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
I
tools
think
that
it
you're
spins off of the consciousness of humanity and us being all entangled with it. And, you
yeah,
know, when we're all, you know, in this discord, in this disharmony, it just feeds it.
yeah. Well, the tools that you outlined here give the possibility, the option of
Hmm.
simmering down, not
Hmm.
operating reactively, and
Hmm.
having a perspective shift on what is currently happening and the awareness of what's going on and approaching things from
Yeah.
a different perspective.
Yeah. And we see these escalations, it's like, I think I opened up Instagram and showed there was some server that was like, acting like they were bringing their food to an ICE agent and they threw it on top of them, and like that, like, get them, like everybody getting each other back and forth, as opposed to, there's something that makes everybody behave the way they behave. And we can absolutely disagree with it. And a higher consciousness is always the answer. And condemning somebody who's trying to survive their world, which is usually fear based, um, doesn't get it done. And we can say we want the behavior to change, but throwing somebody's breakfast on them doesn't change their behavior either. It probably has them double down on it.
Yeah, that's true.
And anybody that's angry in either direction, double down on it until you see somebody like what happened with that lady with the car and getting shot, pulling out into ICE agents, and ICE agents, over response in all directions, and everybody feeling like they have a right to behave the way they want to behave because they're outraged. It's all there. And so what is our role in it? And yeah, it's well, hopefully we fit our 30-minute podcast into these 23 minutes here as the clock rolls over. We got to hop on our calls with our clients, but thanks so much for listening. Happy New Year. Hope those stages of grace. Follow them, play with them. World needs it. Holy shit. Awesome. Well, have a great week, and more to come. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.